She gave everything to her marriage, until betrayal shattered her world. The sun filtered softly through the kitchen window as Maria carefully plated breakfast for her husband and son, her smile gentle but tired. The aroma of coffee filled the small apartment. On the surface, a picture of domestic peace. "Morning," her husband muttered without looking up from his phone, already consumed by the world beyond their walls. Maria paused, forcing the smile to linger as she sat across from him, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. Just a year ago, mornings like this had been filled with laughter, whispered plans, and kisses stolen between preparing meals. They had taken weekend trips, danced barefoot in their small living room to old records, and stayed up late dreaming about their future. She remembered their honeymoon, the long walks on the beach, the promises of forever etched into the night sky. But now, silence had crept in, thick and suffocating. Maria glanced at her wedding photo hanging by the fridge, the two of them beaming on the beach, arms entwined, oblivious to the storms ahead. She swallowed hard. Her husband stood abruptly, grabbing his keys. "I'll be late," he said flatly, and left before she could respond. Left alone, Maria exhaled deeply, her eyes glistening. Their son's laughter echoed faintly from the next room, a sound that reminded her why she kept holding on. Later that day, she met up with her friend Anna for coffee, desperate to vent but unsure where to start. "You two seem distant," Anna said cautiously. Maria just shrugged, staring at the swirl of cream in her cup. "It's just a phase," she lied, more to herself than to Anna. But what Maria didn't know was that this phase wasn't temporary. It was the beginning of the unraveling. It began with a phone call Maria was never meant to answer. Late one evening, as she folded laundry on their worn-out couch, her husband's phone buzzed on the coffee table. A name she didn't recognize flashed across the screen. Leah. He was in the shower, humming to himself, oblivious. Something inside Maria twisted. She told herself it was nothing, just work. But the laughter in the text preview last night was unforgettable, sliced through her chest. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the messages. Months of late-night rendezvous, hotel bookings, and whispered promises of a future that didn't include her. Her husband stepped out of the shower, drying his hair. "Everything okay?" he asked casually. Maria stood frozen, phone in hand, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Who's Leah?" she whispered, her voice trembling but sharp. He glanced at the phone, then back at her, emotionless. "It's not what you think," he muttered, turning away. But it was exactly what she thought. The confrontation escalated fast, Maria yelling through tears, demanding answers. He remained cold, detached. "It's over," he said simply, packing a bag within minutes. "You can't just leave," she cried. But he did, taking nothing but his keys and his silence. Maria stood at the window, watching his car disappear down the street, her entire world collapsing in seconds. The next days were a haze of disbelief and numbness. Maria barely ate, barely slept. She stared at her son playing with toy cars, wondering how to tell him that Daddy wasn't coming home. Weeks passed, but Maria heard nothing from him. Not a call, not a visit. Then, the rumors started. Friends whispered behind her back at the local grocery store. Mothers at the playground shot her pitying glances. One day she overheard two women whispering, "She should have seen it coming. He's been with Leah for months." The humiliation cut deeper than the betrayal itself. One evening, Maria ran into her husband and Leah at the local mall. They walked hand in hand, laughing, their casual happiness a sharp contrast to Maria's broken state. Leah spotted Maria and smirked, as if silently claiming victory. Maria rushed out, barely making it to her car before breaking down. Then came the letter, thick, official, and merciless. Divorce papers. No explanation, no conversation. Just a demand for full custody of their son. Maria's hands trembled as she read through the legal jargon. Her heart pounded with disbelief. How could he try to take their child away from her? Determined not to lose her son, Maria hired a lawyer with money she didn't have, working double shifts at the diner just to cover the basics. Every night she returned home to her sleeping child, kissed his forehead and whispered, "We're going to be okay." But the court hearings were brutal. Her husband, now confident and emboldened by his new relationship, painted Maria as unstable and unfit. His lawyer threw out accusations: she's emotionally volatile, financially incapable. Maria sat in the courtroom, gripping the armrests, her heart pounding. She wanted to scream, to tell them about the nights she stayed up comforting their son when he had nightmares, about the sacrifices she made to hold their family together. But the judge's face remained unreadable. At home, Maria broke down in her bedroom, clutching a framed photo of her and her son from happier days. She could barely recognize herself anymore. The final blow came when the court granted her husband temporary custody. Maria stood in the sterile hallway outside the courtroom, watching as he walked away with their son, the boy's small hand swallowed by his father's. For the first time, Maria felt truly alone. Her apartment, once filled with the echoes of her child's laughter, now sat in suffocating silence. The toys remained untouched in the corner, the bed too big, the nights too long. For weeks she drifted through life like a ghost, working shifts, signing legal documents, and answering well-meaning but hollow questions from friends. "How are you holding up?" Then, one evening, as rain lashed against the windows, Maria sat staring at an empty dinner plate when her phone buzzed. It was a photo, her son, sitting in a stranger's lap, Leah's lap. The caption read, "Family dinner." Maria's chest caved in, but as the tears fell, something inside her snapped, not with anger, but with resolve. She stood up, wiped her face, and took a deep breath. This wasn't how her story would end. The next morning, she met with a new lawyer, a woman who'd been through something similar. Together, they began to build a case, piece by piece, showing Maria's dedication, her stable home, her consistent income. Maria also enrolled in night classes to get a better job, spending every spare moment strengthening herself, not just for the court battle, but for her son. She joined a support group for single mothers, where she shared her story for the first time without breaking down. Their collective strength became hers. She started volunteering at her son's school, showing up for every parent-teacher meeting, every event, quietly building a new foundation of stability and presence. Months passed, and though progress was slow, Maria started to see glimmers of hope. The final court hearing was nothing like the first. Maria walked into the courtroom with her head held high, wearing a simple dress she'd bought after her first paycheck from her new job at the local community center. Her lawyer smiled reassuringly as they sat down. This time, the judge heard a different story. Maria presented her new job, her steady income, glowing character references from her boss and neighbors, photos of her newly organized apartment filled with her son's favorite books and toys, proof of therapy sessions she'd attended to process the trauma. Her husband, seated across the room, looked less confident than before, glancing nervously at Leah, who sat rigidly beside him. After hours of deliberation, the judge made the final ruling: shared custody, with Maria as the primary caregiver. Tears welled up in Maria's eyes, but she stayed composed until she left the courtroom. Outside, her lawyer hugged her tightly as Maria let the relief and joy wash over her. Days later, Maria opened the door of her apartment to see her son standing there, holding his small backpack, his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. "Mom!" he cried, running into her arms. Maria knelt down, holding him close, inhaling the scent of his hair, feeling the warmth of his little body against hers. This moment, this quiet, perfect moment, was worth every sleepless night, every tear, every fight. Over time, Maria didn't just survive, she thrived. She continued working at the community center, helping other single parents navigate their own struggles. Slowly, she began to trust herself again, to believe in love and happiness beyond the pain. One day, while volunteering at a school event, Maria ran into Anna, the friend who had once voiced concerns about her marriage. "You're glowing," Anna said with a smile. Maria smiled back. "I'm finally me again." As they watched the children play in the sun, Maria realized that her life wasn't what she had once dreamed, but in many ways, it was even more beautiful. The scars of betrayal remained, but they no longer defined her. They were part of her story, a testament to her strength, her resilience, and her unwavering devotion as a mother.